We got Gators breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators breakdown. Because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown, we'll talk a little bit of recruiting, of course, off the heels of the decommitment of Izayia Williams, one of the top linebackers in the country, flipping to Ole Miss. Will that be his last stop? Not sure about that, but certainly his fifth commitment, a fifth different school. We'll see what that holds for Williams, but also what it holds for Florida on this episode of Gators Breakdown. Of course, now leaving one commitment in the 2026 class. So we'll get into all of that. You won't hang on to the idea of a decommitment here for too long. You know, we don't harp on the decommitments too much. We celebrate when they commit, but we don't hang on too much. But it is a storyline as we head into as we're heading into May. Busy summer months, a bunch of visits coming up, so kind of good to get a lay of the land in recruiting. We did that a couple of weeks ago with Corey Bender, but we'll focus a little more here on the linebacker spot, and we'll zoom it back out to look at the 2026 class as well. But certainly I think a good time to reassess where Florida is in early May with the busy summer months coming up in the world of recruiting. So I think a lot of storylines to take this, and that's what we'll do on this episode of Gators Breakdown. So everybody hit that like button. Really helps us out. Helps that YouTube algorithm. Leave some comments. I'm sure this one will lend itself to some comments of where you think this class is heading as we sit here in early May. Also subscribe right here on YouTube if you're watching us right here on the replay or on the podcast version. Didn't want to go live this episode. Me and the whole family dealing with some sinus issues and stuff, so didn't know how many stops I'd have to make, sneezes I'd have to make, all that kind of good stuff. So that's just what it is. So it is a pre-recorded episode, but getting here to the kind of the talk of Gator Nation right now is this recent decommitment of Izayia Williams in the class of 2026. So we'll get into all of it, but one more time, hit that like button. Really helps us out. And of course, if you want to keep the conversation going right there, Gators Breakdown Plus. Link is in the description. Gators Breakdown. Ad-free episodes are there. Have these chat episodes. You heard that on one of the most recent episodes of Gators Breakdown. Having a chat there with Gators Breakdown Plus members. Hopefully starting that Q&A back up pretty soon. All that good stuff. Giveaways. But, there we go. Just another thing to look forward to if you want to keep the conversation going. And also, gatorsbreakdownmerch.com. You probably noticed. I was wearing one of the newer releases there for Gators Breakdown, showing the graphic right now, but you'll see it on camera if you just weren't looking. But if you want some support Gators Breakdown even more, some hot summertime vibe looks going on right there as well at gatorsbreakdownmerch.com. But you can get it right there. Really helps us out as well. So yeah, the little splatter pattern shirt, got it on right here. So rocking the old merch. Get noticed a little bit more when you put it in a YouTube video. But good stuff. If you want to support us, you can do it that way. So, all right, let's get into the episode here. 4-star linebacker Izayia Williams flipped his commitment from Florida to Ole Miss on Friday and leaving Florida with quarterback Will Griffin as their only commitment, of course, for the class of 2026. This marks Williams' fifth commitment after previously choosing Louisville, Syracuse, Florida State, and Florida before this flip to the Rebels. I visited Ole Miss last weekend. Right after that, deleted all of his Florida-related content from his social media, so probably saw this one coming, given the history there of decommitments and flips, that, okay, this was probably going to happen again. He currently ranks as the nation's top linebacker in On3's own rankings, but the On3 industry, when they combine all the other recruiting services, along with the 24/7 Sports Composite, both of the recruiting services there that melt together all of the other recruiting services, having the third-ranked linebacker in the country. So one of the top linebackers in the country. That's why you hate losing it. But while this one hurts, since he is one of the top linebackers in the country, at least it removes the cloud over over him in this class, and if he was going to stick with his commitment, all the doubt that came along with so many commitments before, now that cloud is gone. Now, we all know how crazy recruiting is, but kind of absurd when you look at this one in particular. And I don't want to pick on kids too much when it comes to recruiting. I don't do that. But it is a little absurd when the kid's on party, doesn't even know what he's going to do or, when he's doing anything. And he's just committing to schools every couple of months. It's pretty absurd, pretty odd that it happens. Speaking of odd, it's odds to say Ole Miss probably won't be his last. If I had to put some money on it, I'd say he probably makes another commitment or two, given the history. So I'm not really trying to speak ill of Williams, but the way he's handling this recruitment, it rubs me the wrong way. It's just wrong. Look, free to do what he wants to do. If he feels like he's putting himself in a better position, by all means, go do it. But there's different ways to handle it. So while Florida's missing out on a potential great player, at least the cloud isn't hanging over the class if Williams, is eventually going to decommit anyway. At least now, given this timeline, you can make other plans, you can pursue other targets, and which what Florida was doing anyway. But now, you have a much clearer path of how to move forward on defense in the linebacker room with this class of 2026. So, of course, it goes, where do we go next? And, of course, I put that article on gatorsbreakdown.com on Friday. And, despite Williams' departure, Florida remains firmly focused on Lakeland's Malik Morris. You heard Corey Bender and I talk about him a couple of weeks ago. Florida's sitting in good shape. He's been long a top target for the Gators. Morris ranks as the 13th best linebacker and the 197th overall prospect in the 24/7 Sports Composite, while the On3 industry rankings list him as the 11th best linebacker and 183 overall player. Morris earned the Ledger All-County Defensive Player of the Year honors in 2024, starring for a Lakeland team that finished 13-1 and reached Florida's 5A title game. He recorded 95 tackles, 9 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. Morris also contributed on offense, scoring 5 rushing touchdowns. We go to 24/7 Sports, and Andrew Ivins offers this scouting report from Morris. Quote, pit bull of a linebacker that sees the game better than most his age as he breaches gaps and gets the ball carriers on the ground. Extremely active in the box as he seeks and plays through contact, quick to read with and diagnose with eyes, and can swiftly change course if needed. Downhill charge has proven to be a headache for opposing running backs on Friday nights, but doesn't appear to be the type of athlete that's going to win every foot race. Owns more of a muscled-up build at this stage, which could have him in the lineup sooner rather than later on Saturdays. However, does look to have some limitations with the frame as he isn't the longest front seven defender. Two-way snaps and multi-sport participation elevate already exciting junior tape. Overall, would be viewed as a physical two-down inside linebacker that can rack up tackles for a Power 4 program, likely to be at his best in short yardage situations where he can ram his way into the backfield and help create chaos, as that has been the case the past few years for one of the Sunshine State's more respected high school programs. So with Morris, concentrating on him a bit more here. We'll get to some other targets, but after, of course, talking to Corey Bender, if you follow recruiting out there, Morris's name has kind of been on the radar well before this decommitment from Izayia Williams. So while we're concentrating on him so much, we'll look at some other targets. But Morris, of course, visiting Gainesville campus twice already this year, showing consistent interest in Florida. That's another reason why we're spending a little bit more time on him as a likely next target at the position. After Williams' decommitment, Morris, like I said, he was already a high priority target for Florida. He's becoming even more of a crucial prospect for the Gators now. With the way this one sits of, on 3 predictions or 24/7 Sports crystal balls, he's been part of it there for him in a relationship for Florida. So certainly you see why. I think when you look at it and you start looking at what's the fallout of this, you start looking at Morris as a candidate to be in this 2026 class and in this linebacker room. So, of course, there are some other names. That we got to look at, and we get the graphic ready for you guys, and we'll switch it on over. But there you go. There's some 2026 linebackers we should be keeping a name on, or keeping an eye on, and their names. So credit to Blake Alderman from On 3. I was going to do this anyway, but I'll give him some credit here. He came up with a list as well. So credit to Blake Alderman there from On 3 with a list of other linebackers to keep tabs on, in addition to Morris. He did list still 5-star linebacker that we just got the decommitment from, the Ole Miss commit Izayia Williams. Made his flip from Florida to Ole Miss on Friday. Blake goes on to say, despite that being a fresh breakup between Williams and the Gators, he's still a target for the staff that the staff has liked a lot. His flip to the Rebels is also his 5th verbal commitment to date, and his junior year hasn't even finished. The number 1 ranked linebacker at On 3 was still taking official visits while committed to the Gators. The weekend of June 13th has been an expected date for him to make an official visit with the Gators. We will see if that date sticks and if he's got any more flips up his sleeve. Keeping it going here, 4-star linebacker Jordan Campbell. Despite committing to the Hurricanes back in 2023, Miami Northwestern 4-star Jordan Campbell hasn't shut the door on other schools. While he maintains his longtime commitment to Miami is strong, his entertaining schools like Auburn, Florida, Florida State, Missouri, and Nebraska. He's made 2 trips to see Florida this year already as they continue to chip away at him. He's still deciding if he will take an official visit to other schools this summer. Last check. So that is for keep dropping something. That's for 4-star Jordan Campbell. Keeping it going here, we just talked about Malik Morris, of course. So let's go to Shadarius Toodle, an Auburn commit from the state of Alabama. The Cottage Hill Christian Academy 4-star is another flip target the Florida Gators are still recruiting. Toodle made his first ever visit to Florida earlier this spring and spent a few days in town with the staff. He's versatile, and that has been the attention of UF staffers Ron Roberts and Robert Bala. Florida's chances seem slim as of now, though. He previously had an official visit date penciled in with the Gators for June, but has since swapped North Carolina in for that date. There are no plans to set a new date with Florida as of now. Keeping it going here, 4-star linebacker DQ Forkpa from IMG Academy is the newest offer of the names on this list. New assistant coach Robert Bala has targeted Forkpa since arriving in Gainesville. The Gators are among his current top 3 with Colorado and Michigan. Forkpa was on Florida's campus last month and is set to return for an official visit May 30th. While this is a relatively new target for the Gators, they have been moving quickly up the ranks. That for DQ Forkpa. And then let's go to 3-star linebacker Karen Mayock, or Maycock. I think it's Mayock. Florida extended. He's a FSU commit, by the way, from Miami Central. The 3-star Mayock got the interest there. Had never visited Florida's campus following that offer, and committed to Florida State in February. So he got an offer earlier this year from Florida, committing to Florida State. He's not completely shut down the process. And along with planned visits, an official visit to FSU, he's also set trips to Penn State and Miami. We've heard from a few sources, says Blake Alderman of On 3, that the Gators are still interested, but we have not heard of an official visit being set with Mayock yet. Let me see, is it Mayock or Maycock? Because now I see it both ways. So I want to get his name right. I want to get his name right. So let's see. Looks like Maycock. It is. Okay. Karen Maycock. There we go. Let me get his name right. So other names Blake had mentioned of note were to keep an eye on 4-star linebacker Anthony Davis from Loganville, Georgia. 4-star linebacker Adam Balogun. I'm hoping that's right. Balogoun. So your guess is as good as mine. He's from Palm Beach Gardens. And then 3-star South Carolina commit Keenan Britt. So there you go. Looking at linebacker right there, where Florida has to pivot. Malik Morris being the obvious top target so far. But you wanted to pair him with Izayia Williams at the time. If he was going to stick in the class, it was part of the discussion there of getting 2 top flight linebackers to go along in this 2026 class, because the recruiting has been really good at that position the last couple of cycles, and that was another way to add to it here. So we'll see what it holds for Florida. We'll see what it holds for Florida at this position, but we'll have to wait and see also just how much this hurts Florida, if it hurts Florida. Right now as this linebacker room stands for the current team, it's stacked. And that may play into the ability of stacking great players at the position. We just win over some targets, and that mainly Florida is in great shape for right now for Malik Morris. There's some questions at the others. Any recruit won't be needed right away. With the way NIL and transfer portal works, but who knows? But Florida could return the entire room next season when the guys we just discussed would be true freshmen, when these targets would be on campus. Unlikely as that might seem, Florida really could return the whole entire room as it stands for the 2026 season. Pup Howard, Jaden Robinson, Miles Graham, Aaron Childs, Tyler Jackson, all could be back for a 2026 season. So an impact for a freshman would be minimal no matter who it was, no matter where they were ranked. They could be the best linebacker in the country. They could be one of the best linebacker recruits in the history of the game and still may not have an impact with the way this room is stacked at Florida right now. But how likely could that happen? With good seasons, Howard and Robinson could go to the NFL draft. One could go to the NFL draft. So that opens up a little bit. And if they're not, do the four of Howard, Robinson, Graham, and Childs all want to share that much time again in 2026? So that's another way of looking at it. You could return the whole room. But on the other side of this, Howard and Robinson could go to the NFL. And if those guys do come back, do Howard or do Graham, Childs want to share a room? If Howard, Robinson come back, Graham and Childs, they all want to share that much time again in 2026. It'd be great for Florida fans if they wanted to. But would that be likely? In this world of NIL, would that really be likely? It's a possibility. If one of Howard or Robinson leave through the NFL or transfer portal, then the 2026 freshman could have a role, but still clearly behind one of those guys if they return, Graham, Childs, and Jackson. And I guess there's some combination of all the current guys could come back in some combo. But Graham, Childs, or Jackson could hit the transfer portal, but you'd think some of the combo or 3 or 4 of this whole room would be on the 2026 roster. That would be likely. May not know what the combo is, but still got to think. Still got to think 3 or 4 are going to be on this roster in 2026. And then, as we know, the life of college football right now, add in possible transfers to the room. So an instant impact, you're not really looking at one of those type of players in this 26 class. You won't be relying on a 26 linebacker to come in his first season and make an impact. If he does, great, but it's not what you're looking for. It's not what's needed out of somebody coming into the 2026 class. Let me go back. Yeah, it's not what you're looking for, sure. I mean, in some ways, you just want the best players. So in saying you're not looking for a guy who can contribute right away, well, if you get one of the best, maybe he can. I guess the best way to say it is you don't need somebody to come in and be that guy. An impact at this position likely won't really be needed until 2027. You still want to continue to get the top guys here because after the 26th season, if we get the production that we want out of the room, Howard, Robinson, Graham, and Childs could all be gone after the 2026 season. Howard Robinson definitely would be. The 26 linebackers could be in line to start and contribute alongside Ty Jackson for the 27 season. So if you start looking forward, for the 2026 season, not really much of a need. But whoever's in this 26 class as a sophomore, if we get the production out of a Graham and Childs, who more likely will be, the linebackers at 26, but Howard Robinson still could be in the mix. But either way, after the 26th season, If it plays out the way we want to, you're going to need one of these 2026 linebackers, this class of 2026 linebackers, to be in the mix in 27. So whoever it is, whether they be a redshirt freshman or a sophomore in 2027, you can see there's a way for them to play pretty early in their career. Because that's what you sell. You sell this 2026 linebacker class. Like, hey, your freshman season, you probably won't be called on a whole lot. If you go out and prove that you deserve to be on the field, sure, we'll put you out there. You're going to have to earn it. But the next year, if you redshirt your freshman season or you play sparingly in your freshman season, if we get the production we want out of this room, you're going to be a guy we need in 2027. And then throw in a good NIL package as well. That's just the angle of recruiting that, do we even have to say it? I'm speaking, of course, money more than likely is going to be pretty even for the guys. Recruiting still matters. Does NIL matter? Of course, too. I think the NIL pretty much sets you up for your final stages. The NIL package is, there's your finalist. That's who you're putting yourselves amongst. Then recruiting takes over. So when the NIL figured out, my sell is you could be a linebacker we need in the 2027 season. All right, so we zoom out. We zoom out to the 2026 class. Only one commitment right now, and that's quarterback Will Griffin. And interesting to note that with Williams decommitting, that this is the third decommit of the class so far. Add him to defensive backs Jalen Waters and Devin Jackson. So the Gators having to pivot on the defensive side of the ball with decommits. Also, that's the side of the ball with coaching changes. How much is that playing into it? And we know Will Harris left, and that was followed up by Jalen Waters decommitting pretty soon after. So there's some new faces on that, maybe having an impact here. So the staff on that side of the ball, got to know these targets in the last few months. Got to really nail these official visits in the coming months. We heard through those names that we were just discussing a bit on targets, Robert Bala getting involved, of course, in this recruiting this linebacker room. But not with him being in Washington, not really recruiting a lot of these guys. So the familiarity aspect of this comes along the way. But it is interesting to note that of the decommitments in this class so far, they've been on the defensive side of the football. There's been some changes on that side of the ball, staff-wise. And, of course, patience, panic, nothing, somewhere in between. Who knows? Who knows what this really means for Florida, only having one commitment in early May. As we saw last year, Florida can put together a flurry late and finish the class off in good shape. It's way too early for panic with the way recruiting is now with NIL. I mean, you look at the top 10. Just go to the rankings right now. USC is first with 27 commits. Here we are in early May. Florida's got one commit. Southern Cal has 27. Now, we saw them get off to a great start last year as well, only for it not to mean much at the end. They lost a bunch of commitments. They were pretty much the opposite of Florida last year. They went on a big spree in the spring, got a bunch of commitments. It didn't mean anything. Notre Dame is second with 14 commits. Clemson is third with 14 as well. LSU is fourth in the country with 10 commits. Penn State fifth in the country with 14. Ohio State is sixth with 11. Texas A&M seventh with 11 commits. So that group right there, they'll probably stay near the top in the top 10. Those are schools that you have seen flirt with that anyway. Southern Cal being number one, no, that's not going to last. Not with 27 commits. I'd be surprised. I'd be shocked. But Notre Dame has recruited well. They'll hover around in the top 10. Clemson as well. LSU the same. Penn State. Ohio State, of course. Texas A&M, probably the biggest question out of that group I just mentioned. But we know they can comfortably recruit in the top 10. be around the top 10. But then after those schools, you got a lot of schools that won't factor in to this big picture top 10 look. When we say it's early, this is what we mean by that in a lot of ways. Kansas is at number 8 in the country with 14 commits. Illinois at 9 with 13. Syracuse comes in at 10th with 15. Arizona State at 11 with 12 commits. Now, Syracuse, of course, everybody. Illinois, Syracuse, Arizona State. Teams that probably overcome expectations last year, but they're not going to be right here, 9th, 10th, and 11th when it's all said and done. They may recruit better than they have been in recent years. They are not going to be top 10, near the top 10 when it's all said and done. Iowa State is 12th with 13 commits. North Carolina, 13th with 13 commits. Now, a lot of people will sit here and say, well, Bill Belichick, there you go. He's making 10 of those are 3 stars. 10 out of the 13 are 3 stars before you think Belichick has it rolling. It's just, he's got it rolling with number of commits, not type of commits. Louisville's at 14th with 13 commits. Arkansas is 15th with 14 commits. So, yeah, it's not that, it's early. Some schools that we mentioned that are in the top 10, they'll stay there. They'll stay near there. Those last group of schools I mentioned, they won't. Big schools that we know will be in the top 5 and the top 10 that I didn't even mention. Oregon has 7 commits. Georgia has 7. Alabama has 5. Texas has 5. Those teams are sprinkled in, around the 20th, the 35, 40 mark. Ain't no concern for those schools, believe me, with their low numbers. Now, don't get me wrong, Florida's only got 1. You like to be in position of Oregon and having 7, and Georgia and having 7, Alabama, Texas. We'll get a better sense of where this class is during and after the summer, heading into the season, but even that will only be some of the story. And even then, when you get a handle on where you are in the summer months, it doesn't mean as much as it used to mean. When you would just load up early. There's a lot more flux in recruiting now. We all can admit that. Now, for your recent elites, yes, I still think them loading up earlier still means a lot. Like your Ohio State in the top 10 right now. Okay, yeah. For some schools, it doesn't matter. If they're in the top 10, they'll stay in the top 10. Your Georgias, your Bamas, your Texases, they'll be there. But I still think when your recent elites load up, they're not going to have a rash of decommitments. So, and I think if you were, say if you're Florida right now, and say Florida goes on this big run of commitments this summer, and then goes on to have a big season. Well, I think their commitments are mostly safe as well. Florida's a polarizing team in recruiting. But I think with the way Florida finished last cycle, and Florida goes on this big run this summer, and then goes on to have a good season, their commitments are safe as well, I think. I don't think it's going to be affected. But have a bad season, and it can be poached. That's where Florida's program is compared to those recent elites. I think those other elite schools that have been near the top of recruiting, they could go on to have a subpar bad season, and more than likely, their classes will still be okay. Florida's a tier below those. Not a whole lot of recent success. You go have a bad season, even if you just go have this big summer. And we saw it. We saw it with the 23 class. I think it would probably play out the same way. It could be, for Florida, a story similar to last season. Kids are still waiting to see how this season goes before deciding on Florida. While there are better feelings about this season than last, there's still talk of how stable the program would be with a bad 2025. Now, that thought isn't as prevalent as it once was. Wasn't as prevalent as it was last year, but some schools are using that angle against Florida. Yeah, they might be looking good now, but just wait. If Billy Napier has a bad 25, he may not be there. They're saying it. No matter what Scott Strickland says, schools are going to use that against Florida. And it's still possible. You can't go have a disaster of a season. Not with everything that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. DJ Lagway coming in, so many returning starters, NFL draft prospects. You go 6-6. I mean, yeah, a move's probably got to be made. Then some schools are saying that too. It's really hard to get a handle on this Florida class of 2026. With one commit, where it stands right now, it's hard to know what that really means for Florida. To another angle of it here, it always starts in-state. And we've seen decommitments in this class of the top in-state prospect, Jalen Waters, Izayia Williams. We've also seen targets that Florida was thought to be in great shape for, like wide receiver Naeem Burrows from Jacksonville Bowls, or Orlando four-star offensive lineman Chancellor Barkley. Both those guys committed to Clemson. Both those really sting. I know we live in a world where committing and decommitting happens a lot. It still doesn't usually happen with Clemson. So Florida's got their work cut out for them if they still want to pursue those two. But are you wasting a whole lot? Now, I don't really believe in wasting minutes and wasting effort recruiting. But when you look at history with Clemson, when guys commit there are not a whole lot of decommitments. Florida seemed to be in great shape with those two guys. Now, the reason I say you still pursue, there's not much to me in the way of wasting minutes recruiting, wasting time recruiting. I don't really believe in that. Clemson's got a lot of expectations this year. What if they go have a disaster of a season? Do those two guys still believe in what Dabo Swinney's selling? They may start looking around. That's why you stay at them. Now, I don't think it's a disaster of a season Clemson has and Dabo Swinney gets fired. No, I don't think that happens. But if they have a subpar season and the season not living up to some lofty expectations for them to go win the ACC and be in the college football playoff, if they don't do that, could there be some second thoughts from some of those guys who committed early, saying, okay, maybe this is not the place for me? Florida seems to be in good shape for four-star edge from IMG, Jake Krull, as he put Florida in his finalist of Colorado, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Texas. As we continue in-state, four-star Samorian Wingo from St. Augustine. It looks to be a Florida versus Miami battle right now. And it may be one of the best spots Florida fields is four-star defensive back C.J. Hester from Cocoa. So you start looking, obviously, Florida's going to get commitments here in the coming months. But all we really can do with one commitment right now is just wait and see. And that's the name of the game with this program right now. Florida really is in a weird spot. There's enough good feelings, there's enough at the same time, enough trepidation to know exactly how to feel. Florida's still not at the level overall of a Georgia, a Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, where recruiting is a given. No matter NIL, no matter transfer portal and such. But Florida's also not a cellar dweller here. So it's tough to know the direction this is going to go. A flurry to a great finish isn't a given, nor is a huge fail a given. Recruiting and following recruiting is in an odd place right now. I mean, you still need to recruit and develop your homegrown talent, but it's not at the level it used to be. But I'll stand by that is still the best track. And then supplement in the portal. But there's enough roster movement out there that living and dying with every recruit and every commit and decommit and flip, all that isn't what it used to be. And we're still here early enough in the infancy of NIL and transfer portal that, a path to the college football playoff and a championship game appearance is more open than it has been in the past. I will stand by it till I'm blue in the face. You still got to recruit the high school level really well. I'll never back off of that. You have to get close enough where there's no over-reliance on the transfer portal. I still think stars matter. and recruiting a bunch of 3 stars and low 4 stars and trying to develop them into a team that can consistently compete for a championship, it's not going to happen. When I talk about recruiting, I'm always talking about the mark of consistency. You know, if you recruit that way, it'll either hold you back or you'll have to go major portal hunting to fill needs. If you're going to rely on the 3 stars, 4 stars, that won't be consistent. You're not getting a consistent winner that way. When I look at recruiting, it isn't about winning one title. It's about setting yourself up to be in the conversation for a length of time. And with college football now, there's a fine line on these plans and how it should happen and what can happen. But the teams that are consistently still in the conversation are still the ones at the top of the recruiting rankings. Now, they may not win it as consistently as they did. I'll admit that there can be those teams that rise up to steal a title. And believe me, I'll take one of those as well. Don't get me wrong. I certainly will. But for me, consistency is the ultimate marker. You want to be in the conversation every year. How you get there is not as easy as it once was. I'll admit, the transfer portal has changed it. NIL has changed it. But I still think if you're one of those schools that heavy rely on the portal or rely on the portal more than you probably should, all right, you might win a title one year, but what about the next year? What about the next year? What the year after that? Can you rinse, recycle, repeat where you might can be that program that figures out that and then go make your run every 3-4 years? Okay, but there's going to be a lot of teams trying to do it that way. I still think with Florida and the resources that are available and can be, I still think Florida can be in that conversation of Bama, Ohio State, Georgia. Get yourself to that type of program where you're recruiting well enough year in and year out. Now you can be in the conversation. Not there yet, as we all wanted to be by year 4 of Billy Napier. This year can go a long way. I think if you got a proof of performance, if Florida lives up to a lot of our expectations this year and goes fight for an SEC in the college football playoff spot, it needs to be still something you can build off of for a mark of consistency. In Florida, as I said, you can't rely on low, 3 stars, low 4 stars. Not necessarily what Florida's been doing. Like I said, Florida's kind of in this kind of unique spot with the way they've recruited, just a hair below those other programs. But now you've got a roster in a spot where you got some experience coming back, didn't go heavy portal hunting, haven't really flipped the roster through the transfer portal. There was a lot of conversation early in Napier's career, should he have done that? He didn't. His plan to build through high school recruiting. But high school recruiting still has to, I think, reach some benchmarks. We're still so early in NIL, in transfer portal, to know exactly what threshold you may have to meet in recruiting. But we know if you're going to be near the top, you're probably still going to find yourself in the conversation. It doesn't mean you will win, but you ain't going to win without it still. I'll still stand by that. It's a lot of interesting conversation. I still think, mainly because when I talk about proof of performance, well, that's what we saw last year. Can you get a repeat of a big late season finish? I'd like to have a little bit better start, roll into some of the momentum. And with the way Florida finished with a flurry last 2025 cycle, kind of surprised it didn't bleed over to a better start in 2026. Now, you've had some good recruits in the class so far. They just decommitted. As I mentioned, Jalen Waters, one of the top DBs in the state of Florida, in the country. You had him, he decommitted. Izayia Williams, same thing at linebacker. Big months coming up. It kind of just sets the foundation. But doesn't have to be the end of the story. So there's no really words of wisdom of be patient or or be panicked. You can feel however you want to feel. I think what we have learned is Maybe the best is just wait and see. I know that's boring. I know people want proclamations. Not getting it here. Now, obviously, I wish Florida had more than one commitment right now. But also, I mean, we know that's not going to be the case. It's not going to finish that way. Sit back, see where it goes. Recruiting's changing. Recruiting has changed. I think the end result, the end goal still remains the same, but the way of getting there might be just a little bit different. And I think we still may have to figure that out. All right, that'll do it. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. A little bit of recruiting talk right here in the start of May. Everybody, thanks for hopping in, listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.